Hello, lovelies. If you're like me, you've been listening to the new Deftones album quite a bit. And I mean the fact that they're my favorite band, I mean it's easy to see why. Not to mention pretty much everybody agrees this is some of their best work. I don't see this album on the bottom of anybody's list or even really near the bottom. Speaking of which, I will be doing a discography tier list of Deftones catalog pretty soon. But if you're also like me, you probably watch a little bit of Anthony Fantano. He, among a few other channels, have inspired me to make this channel because I do like the aspect of reviewing music. I love diving deep into what makes certain albums tick. Unfortunately, with this channel, I haven't had the opportunity to really begin that. I've only done like a little bit here and there in more short summarizations more than anything. But with more growth in the channel and more free time, which is always lacking on my end, I do intend to make this channel super into like album review territory. Mostly focusing on the back catalogs of a whole lot of bands that I enjoy. But when it comes to the Melon Man himself, I really respect his approach towards music reviews. Not to mention, he's actually introduced me to a variety of great music over the years. Although he's had some rather lazy and questionable takes here and there, I still tune in regardless, and I'm actually eager to hear what he has to say about the new Deftones album, because I thought he was very harsh on Ohms, and to a lesser extent Gore, and also that Koino Yokan review hasn't aged well at all. That's easily their best, if not one of their best, in my opinion. Not to mention, I can't help but love the drama that he's gotten into with Ronnie Radke lately, which coming from a guy who briefly had beef with him, I'm all about it. Like, break out the popcorn. Ronnie Radke is trash. He's a joke. He's a clown. Like, the dude has such a hate boner for Fantano just because he said he doesn't like his music. The dude's like 42 and he's still projecting super hard with every video and screed that he goes off on and posts on the internet. So let's get into his review. Let's see what he has to say about the new album. I haven't seen this yet. Now, I've listened to the album like maybe 8, 9 times in its entirety so far. I've gone back to multiple tracks here and there as well. We'll get to that in a future video. Let's see what he has to say.
Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review.
The lawsuit that he just won against Ronnie Radke. He has every reason to celebrate. And the fact that he attached it to the beginning of a fucking Deftones review that a lot of people are going to watch, it's great.
Of this new Deftones album, Private Music. California alternative metal legends Deftones are back with their 10th full-length LP. It is their first in 5 years, released since 2020's Ohms, making this the longest gap there has been between two Deftones albums, as the band up until this point has had a very lengthy and consistent career. And maybe that gap was necessary because even though the reception for Ohms was relatively positive, I mean, the negative backlash to my review of the album said as much. Personally,
Yeah, true. He said nothing about error. He said nothing about ceremony. He said nothing about the spell of mathematics. I will give him this. Like, a lot of people don't really like This Link Is Dead, but I think that's a f***ing fire track. Yeah, it just came off as lazy. And what he said about Genesis, like, as if Deftones has ever been really political, was just kind of tone deaf. But anyway.
found that project to be one of the least inspired in their entire catalog so far, as it felt neither adventurous or even up to...
Like, here's the thing. Ohms wasn't their best. I wouldn't say it's, like, among the best half of their catalog, but it was still very much an enjoyable record that I revisit pretty often. It's not a bad album at all.
So far, as it felt neither adventurous or even up to the band's usual creative standards if they were going to play it this safe and predictable on an album such as this. But Private Music marks a new chapter for the band, maybe not a brand new direction, but still a new chapter, because culturally right now, I don't know if there's a whole lot of demand for Deftones to change their sound up that radically. While I do think the band's salad days are long behind them at this point, and I have accepted a while ago that it's highly unlikely they are ever going to drop a record again that hit as hard for me as White Pony did when I was in high school.
I think most Deftones fans would agree with that. But then again, not everybody considers White Pony to be their best. Most people do. Most fans, I would probably grant you. I have considered White Pony to be my favorite for years, but honestly, I'm kind of thinking it might be Koi no Yokan at this point. I think the consistency, like you stated at the beginning of the review, is still there, even if he particularly doesn't enjoy a lot of it.
Very moment, though, the band is seemingly as popular as ever, with a renewed interest in their trademark brand of crushing but dreamy alt metal, thanks to a new, young, passionate fan base of Zoomers. And all this fuss has not just led to a lot of love for the band's classic albums, which is to be expected more or less. There's also been a lot more appreciation for the more recent projects the band has dropped throughout the 2010s. And with so much support behind that signature Deftones sound right now, what better group to be stewards for it than the Deftones themselves? And the good news is the band sounds pretty excited to do exactly that on Private Music, with producer Nick Raskulinecz, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. I apologize.
I've heard it mispronounced here and there. I guess it's Raskulinecz. The guy who produced Diamond Eyes and Koi no Yokan and did such a fucking excellent job, especially with Koi no Yokan. You can kind of argue that maybe Diamond Eyes was a bit loud and overcompressed here and there, even though that's still like a top 3 album of theirs for me. But they end up going with Matt Hyde, with Gore, and kind of didn't like that at all. If I'm remembering correctly, they didn't like the way that that sounded. And a lot of people didn't. I think the production is kind of weak on that album. And then they went back with Terry Date for Ohms, who produced, like, I think their first 3 albums, maybe first 4. And, I mean, it's a sensible, production pick. Why not? Like, Ohms ended up sounding really good. It had a real edge to it. It had like there's an energy underneath everything. I liked it. But I digress. Continuing.
Apologize if I'm not. But Nick worked with the band previously on 2010's Diamond Eyes, as well on Koyo Nokan in 2012, which did have me a little eyes, as well on Koyo Nokan in 2012, which...
He says Koyo Nokan. Oopsie.
Which did have me a little bit worried, because Diamond Eyes is far from one of my favorite Deftones releases, as I found a lot...
Which is still absolutely insane. Easily some of their best songs end up on that album.
A lot of the songwriting on that to be a little bit too basic, straightforward, and formulaic. Many of the sounds on this record very loud and rigid and blocky. But honestly, I think the production and performances on Private Music come across a lot more soft around the edges, more fluid. The experience of this record feels a lot more like a really well-recorded live show or session recording, as opposed to a bunch of isolated bits of instrumentation being punched into a multi-track. And even if that...
Yeah, I can definitely see that take regarding Diamond Eyes, the rigidness of it. It didn't sound as natural and as flowing, but for me, that's kind of the appeal of it, at least at the time. Not to get all, like, I'm getting all super nerdy and, like, in the weeds with all this terminology and whatnot, because I am, just like Anthony here, a gigantic music nerd. And I just happen to be a massive Deftones fan, so I'm going to be a little bit protective and particular and in-depth with these things. So, moving on.
Is what bits of instrumentation being punched into a multi-track. And even if that is what Private Music is, I mean, kudos on managing to imbue it with a sound that comes across as at least a bit live. So yeah, the result there is a record and experience that feels genuinely intoxicating and alluring, like a lot of the band's classic material. And I would say on some of these tracks too, there is definitely a newfound purpose in Chino's vocal performances as well, due I'm sure to a lot of the lyrics dealing pretty directly in him grappling with mental health issues, inner turmoils, and showing strength and endurance during hardship. So there's a noticeable amount of tension, aggression, and passion going into these songs. And it's noticeable right from the thunderous opener of the record, which was also a single and sets up really the thick ocean of blaring guitars that we'll be immersed in for a majority of this record's runtime. The verses on this thing are full of chunky riffs and extended notes, with Chino's vocals sounding absolutely ferocious during some of the shouty spoken word passages. Meanwhile, his legendary cleans on the choruses are sounding as solid as ever. Milk of the Madonna is another strong single to have dropped before the album came out, and these
I can't even tell you guys just how often I played that when it dropped. If you haven't seen it already, you can see my first time reaction to both singles. But my Milk of the Madonna one, relative to my channel, kind of popped off a little bit and got me some new subscribers. So I appreciate that very much. And honestly, at this point, it might just be my favorite song of the album. It really does hit that Mime meets Swerve City feel. It's just a perfect sound for them, honestly.
Highlights are met with equally strong deep cuts like Ectasis, which features these very skeletal, stripped back verses laid out with these sinister, deep bass lines, and anthemic hook. It's just this straight up classic, loud, soft, dynamic Deftones sound with some even more classic groove metal movement to it. And the cherry on top are the subtle touches of synthesizers that just sweeten up the mix in a really interesting way. And the whole entire thing just sounds mountainous. I'm also loving the track Infinite Source, which is packed with these bright, crunchy guitars that lean into.
So am I! Oh, seriously, it's one of their best songs in a long time. I think Infinite Source and Milk of the Madonna kind of top any of the songs from the last couple albums of theirs, in my opinion. At least those two in particular, Milk of the Madonna and Infinite Source.
To a really intense Infinite Source, which is packed with these bright, crunchy guitars that lean into a really intense feeling of bliss that very few other tracks on this album have, at least to this degree, because this track sounds like bathing in sunlight or flying through the clouds, but still bringing the heaviness and edge that a good metal song should. Again, it's just peak Deftones, and nobody does it as well.
Yeah!
Now, with that being said, I do...
That is such a fair take. He's given them their due props.
Now, with that being said, I do think there are some moments in the track list here where the band feels a bit lost in their own sauce, like with the overly slow, dramatic pacing of the verses on Souvenir, a track that would be...
I'll agree with that. Souvenir does feel like more of a slog, honestly. It's not one of my favorites on the album. It's taking a while to grow on me, so I can see how he would point out this particular track in this way.
A total snooze if not for some of the righteous chord changes and sense that the song experiences at a few points, most notably right before the middle of the song. And also, I don't really know what Chino is trying to do on the track Cut Hands with like these little rap metal flows that I feel like the band hasn't really made a part of their sound in quite a while. While I know there are key cuts on Around the Fur that specialize in this sort of thing a bit, this is not really the band's bread and butter, nor is it part of their sound that has like aged the best, which is...
I don't care if it's aged the best. It's still like I wouldn't say it's fundamental to their sound, but when they whip it out, like they do it with such finesse and energy, and like sass, to where it's just like I hella fuck with it. I think Cut Hands is a killer track, but that's just my opinion.
Is why it's even weirder to see them lean into this further on Metal Dream right after.
Metal Dream did come off as like one of the weaker-ish songs to me. I think it started out like super fiery and like kind of menacing and like seductive and funky, but it didn't really go anywhere. Listen to me, is this my review or is this Anthony's?
on Metal Dream right after. With that being said, though, there are some other fiery highlights in the track list, like with CXZ, which kicks off with these burning,
Yeah.
shrill layers of guitar, with the drums really fighting to punch through this mix. And while it is true, these passages are paired with some slower, more easygoing moments to sort of give this song some much needed variation, I don't know if I'm into the song itself as much as I am into just like the intensity of all of it. Toward the
I can definitely respect this take because I kind of agree. When I first listened to the record, I considered CXZ to be my favorite track. It really did hit those strides, but arrangement wise, composition wise, it could have been a lot better. It's still a great sounding track to me personally. So I'm actually like super in agreement with him on that one.
back end of this album, we enter into ballad time with the song I Think About You All the Time. Chino
Yes,
gives
we
one of his
do.
most raw and expressive vocal performances on the entire record here.
Yes.
And there are some heavy and final passages in 3-4 toward the back end of this track that kind of make me feel like I'm listening to the alt metal equivalent of a prom slow dance. After this point, though, unfortunately, there aren't
Sure.
really any other tracks in the track list that I have super strong feelings on. Even the closer, that while heavy, I don't really think adds that much more to the track list. Certainly not anything else that all the other songs so far didn't already. Still, with that being said, I
That's
do think
fair.
Private Music is one of Deftones' most solid records in years. But if it's missing anything, I think it's just a sense of adventure, which is not only what makes a lot of their early work so exciting, but also creative peaks in their catalog, such as Saturday Night Wrist. And while it is clear that Private
I've always appreciated the fact that he is a big fan of the Saturday Night Wrist album because that is indeed one of their best albums, front to back, period. Production wise, song wise, all the band members wise, just it, love that record to death.
Music is fueled by a lot more passion and excitement than maybe Deftones' past couple of records were. A lot of this record kind of feels like the band is playing
Sure.
to expectations more than they are challenging themselves, which is why I'm feeling about a decent 2 strong 7 on
Yeah,
this one.
that's what I was expecting.
Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you
Yeah,
love it? Did you
that's
hate it? What
fair.
would you rate it?
Yeah, honestly, I'll give it to him. I mean, I kind of I expected him to give it a 7. He put the first two singles of the album in his best tracks of the week when they first dropped. I watched him react on stream to Locked Club, Ecdysis, and Infinite Source, and his reaction was somewhat positive. So I figured like he might actually kind of fuck with this one. Lo and behold, he does. He did. And usually he has something to say in the description here. Deftones are sounding as heavy as ever on Private Music. Okay. It's very basic. Favorite tracks: My Mind is a Mountain, Ecdysis, Infinite Source, CXZ. Yeah, yeah. I think about you all the time. Milk of the Madonna. Hell fucking yeah, dude. Least favorite track: Metal Dream. That's fair. Gave it a decent 7, which is basically what Pitchfork gave the album. So, I mean, that checks out. Crazy how Pitchfork considers Gore to be a better album rating wise, but not by much than Ohms or Private Music. But whatever, I digress. I don't know, like if I had to like give a number rating, like I'd probably say 8.5 or 9 for Private Music. But it's just because I'm a gigantic fanboy, so I'm biased. Objectively speaking, if you're not already a huge Deftones fan, this album might come and go for you. You might like some of it. Some of it might not be as memorable. But I'm just happy that he gave them proper props. It seemed like he was actually able to dive deep into it and get something out of it and not like immediately dismiss it, I guess you could say. When it comes down to it, Deftones really is music that you intentionally submerge yourself in. It's an experience more than anything, I would say. Well, I guess that's it. I've been talking for a minute now. Make sure you guys hit the like button, comment down below what you thought of the video, I suppose. Make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell so you don't miss notifications for new videos or live streams, etc., etc. And make sure you check out my other videos as well, or don't. It just doesn't matter as long as you enjoy.